Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Dear Umair. I'm Jamin, happy to be joined by Marco, James, and friends. Welcome, everyone. Everyone's welcome to join us on Dear Umair, where we read an article of Umair's and then we talk about it. And while we're reading the article, I put my background on red equals reading. So that way, if you've already read the article and you just want to get to the conversation, you skim through. I'm burnt out on collapse. Oh, by the way, feel free to say hello, everyone, or not, or whenever you feel like it.
Good evening. Welcome.
Yeah, definitely. Welcome anybody with a brain that wants to help save the planet. And don't feel any lack of education, formal education is not necessary whatsoever, because this isn't rocket science, it's earth science, and we got it nailed here. So, and it's easy to bring you up to speed. Just request it, and we can even take you, on a solo in a breakout room and bring you up to speed if necessary.
Yeah, in fact, we're going to have increasingly a whole curriculum for bringing folks up to speed, and lots of different rooms. We're going multi-room here, multi-conversation, as we talk about frequently. All right. Well, welcome everyone again, and let's get on with the article. And just jump in anytime, you guys, okay, if you have anything to say. The article is entitled, "I'm Burned Out on Collapse, and I Bet You Are Too. The Hidden Cost of Living Through a Time of Fracture, Disintegration, and Catastrophe." It was around the beginning of the summer that I noticed that all I wanted to do was sleep. And it wasn't just the heat. My mind felt bruised to a livid purple welt. Just thinking felt disturbingly painful. My bones felt as weary as dust, and that fine dust seemed to cover everything, leaving my world cloudy, hazy, foggy, slow motion, indistinct. The dust sang sweet lullabies of slumber. "Just sleep," it would murmur. "Please let yourself rest. Doesn't it feel sweet?" So one part of me would plead with another for sleep, for rest, over and over again. The other part, annoyed and alarmed in equal measure by such self-indulgence, such laziness, replied sternly, "You've slept plenty long enough today," and commanded me to sternly leap up, write, work, meet, discuss, talk, go, do, like everything was fine, normal, pretty good. Now, and this whole next paragraph is in parentheses. Now, one of the strange things about the sunlight being able to kill you is that you come to know yourself pretty well. You listen to your internal signs and signals, the movements and pulses of the strange and unknowable thing called a body, its rivers and oceans, its beats and murmurs. And yet I couldn't pin down just why I felt so tired, so sleepy, so utterly exhausted, lethargic, drained, done, like all those rivers and oceans had turned to deserts and parched earth. By about a week later, I was a walking zombie. I would toss and turn all night, then leap out of bed, groaning with frustration, and pace from the living room to the bedroom to the bathroom and back again. Wait, wasn't I worn out? So why was sleep eluding me? Then I'd sleepwalk through the day. I'd wake up and snap, my mind would go numb. It would simply shut itself down. Every cell, feeling, sensation in my body seemed to want was to hibernate blackly, as if through the darkness of a white winter. It took me a week or so to put my finger on it. I don't have a particularly stressful life. Or do I? I rouse myself, go have coffee, write, do my little consulting projects, coach a few people here and there. It's pretty low key. I can't manage much more, to tell you the truth. There's a reason none of the storybook vampires ever have 9-to-5 jobs. And yet nobody who can't sleep, can't think, feels so inexplicably tired all the time, can tell you they're not feeling some kind of acute systemic stress. So what the blazes was it that was stressing me out? So I confessed to my friends, Morgan, Elena, and James. Weirdly, they were all feeling more or less the same way. They admitted reluctantly, excuse me, when I pressed them a little, sleepless, but restless, exhausted, but wide awake, sleepwalking through the day, worn out, drained, wrecked, minds numb, fatigued, and stunned, all at the same time. What the hell was wrong with all of us? Was there something in the drinking water? And then it hit me. I was burned out on collapse. And so were they. Our lives might not be particularly stressful in some kind of narrow personal sense, but they'd become profoundly, severely distressed in what you might call a psychosocial one, living through an age of fracture and decline, of pandemic and planetary collapse, of indifference and helplessness. It's an exhausting, soul-crushing thing. I'm burned out on collapse, and I'd bet you are too. It's not easy living in a time like this. It sucks the life out of you, drains you, changes you. Just being there, just watching it all go down, just going on to fight through another day. That's the truth. Give yourself a round of applause. Give yourself a round of applause. You deserve it. Cry a little tear for yourself. I mean it. You deserve that too. You've been tested in a difficult, deep, and painful way. Not just from a pandemic that shows no sign of ending, a pandemic that capital doesn't want to end because they're making the greatest profit in human history. Not just from the rising totalitarianism around the globe, not just from the climate grief of knowing that we're destroying the planet and watching the devastation unfold in real time, but also from the sheer indifference to it all that elites seem to have. Their inaction, their indifference, it leads to our helplessness. And that is a soul-crushing feeling, my friend. But let's think about what all those emotions really mean. Now, I won't give you the usual rigmarole. You know, get off the internet and practice self-care. I think all this cuts a little deeper than that. I'll simply talk you through what I noticed in myself, and you can judge for yourself if it applies to you too. You can be honest, nobody's listening but you. And then in parentheses, and let me say emphatically, that isn't a plea for pity, though it's always nice to know that you care about me. it's just a little reflection that I thought I'd share with you about the psychological price of living in an age of collapse. The first thing that I noticed, if I looked at myself, was that almost the instant I woke up, my mind was shutting itself down. Snap. It was like it decided all by itself to operate at a quarter speed. I'd struggle for words, to make decisions, and so forth. Any good psychologist would probably have noted that this was a kind of protective measure, a defense mechanism, kicking into high gear. Technically, several at once: denial, compartmentalism, possibly regression, maybe even a little bit of dissociation. But from what? Such a sudden, intense defensive posture tells us that a mind is under acute pressure, tension, conflict. It prefers the bliss of ignorance to the anxieties of a dreaded reality. Snap. Meow, shut down. All right. I'd like to comment at this point. So if anyone has strong feelings about, like, no, just keep reading, because I actually think it's a pretty good inflection point. Any comments, you guys, about, are we cool?
No.
Yeah, I think this is fine.
Okay.
I definitely have feelings about what we've heard so far too. So go for it.
I have personal experience with it. When I was a child, right, I was in a very, psychologically, emotionally painful situation. I won't go into the details of the situation, but it was very painful and I felt very helpless. And Marco, you're unmuted, just FYI. Thanks. And not that that's an issue. I just wanted you to know. And I mean, I would dissociate. It's like it was too much. And so I'd kind of go into an alternate reality. But here's the thing. I was a child then. I'm a man now. But as a child, the circumstances were too big for me. I couldn't really change the circumstances. All I could change was what was inside my bubble, right? And but now we live in a world of our bubble. One world, one atmosphere, that's our bubble right there, okay? And it's collective. And we can change this situation. We can actually turn it around. We can cool the planet. We don't have to keep overheating exponentially at a rate of 137 boops per year. And by the way, that's based on NASA's estimate of 0.8 watts per square meter on average all around the Earth, net energy coming in. You can look it up on NASA's website. Just Google energy, Earth heat imbalance, right? And it's one of the first links to come up. So per NASA's conservative estimates, right? They're the federal government of the United States, okay? They're going to give conservative estimates. That's a conservative estimate that we're overheating by 137 boops per year. Go see the videos on boops if you have any questions on my YouTube channel. And BOOPS. And the bottom line is we are just overheating exponentially. And we've got to, number one, stop the overheating. Turn the oven off, Johnny. Number two, cool the planet. Johnny, open the oven door and open the nearby kitchen windows to the outside winter air. We've got to cool it down. We can A, stop the overheating, and B, cool it. We can do both those things. But listen, we can only do those things if we believe we can. And if we come together and do this as one humanity. Who gives a hoot Whether the elites join first, last, or somewhere in the middle, everyone will join in the end, because what we're doing is nothing other than saving and healing life on Earth. That in and of itself is a transformation, that humanity would shift its focus, or a significant portion of humanity, because it'll probably take less than 1% of us to totally pull this off. The other 99% don't even need to know it happened. They probably will, but it's not like we need to get everybody on board or some massive majority, right? We have the means to cool the planet with marine cloud brightening, which does not require a permit of any kind, to my knowledge, right? I'm sure some maritime law, and including international law, will emerge to support this, but that'll come. In the meantime, there's really no issue. These are sailing vessels pumping 10 cubic meters per second into the air amongst all of them, 1,000 vessels, right? So, but combined spraying 10 cubic meters, think a small tiny swimming pool per second amongst all of them on average. Okay. With that, we create enough, and these are in ultra-fine droplets, which are ultra reflective and have very little volume, right? Because volume goes as the cube of the radius, whereas reflective surface area goes as the square of the radius. So as you get down to infinitesimally sized particles, you get incredible reflective bang per very little water. So we're spraying minuscule amounts of water into the air, creating super bright white clouds that reflect sunlight back into space. I mean, that's it. It's not more complicated than that. Spray ocean water filtered through essentially a glorified shower head that sprays out ultra fine particles. You've got to watch Stephen Salter's work. See the segment called Dear Umair, Meet Professor Salter, right? Watch that segment, please. But here's where all this leads to. We can totally do this with, even a tiny percentage of us even knowing about it, right? We'll be doing, we already did a press conference last week on it. Check out the press conference, September 23rd, 2021. A lot of that was dedicated to cooling the planet, right? So check it out. It's really important stuff. So we're not keeping this a secret. We're broadcasting it to the world. Will the world, wake up and pay attention or not? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Where am I going with this? And why is this relevant to the article? The article is, you dissociate if you're a kid, if you can't change your macro circumstances, like, who your stepfather is or how many siblings you have or whatever, right? So you dissociate and you go into your little bubble and all that. In our case, we're being killed. Let's call a spade a spade. We are in the process of being killed, we, life on Earth, from exponential planetary overheating, which a relatively small number of us can stop, actually. It literally only takes one person to fund it, right? It takes one multi-billionaire to fund the whole thing throughout its entire life cycle, many years into the future, for the next century. The total budget in terms of net present value probably doesn't exceed 20 billion, including operating costs. Upfront investment will probably be on the order of 10 billion, give or take, right? Add another 10, create a fund and have it earn interest and whatever, and just use the interest to pay operating expenses going forward for the next 10 billion ad infinitum, right? So we can do this. We can totally do this. We build a community, whether it's, 1 out of every 1,000 humans or literally 1 out of every million. I'll talk about that scenario. If even one out of a million of us comes together on this, that's 8,000 of us. And if we 8,000 come together as a collective intelligence, as we discussed in the last couple of videos post press conference, right? We went really deep into this topic. With 8,000 of us, we can form a collective intelligence that will grow exponentially. Why? Because more people will join. Imagine 1,000 conversations going in parallel, 8 people each on average, just rough numbers. That's collective intelligence. And it's now it's off on an exponential curve, because once you experience that, there's no going back. There's simply no going back. So we're going to achieve two life-changing, world-changing objectives in one single pass. Okay. And I'm not quite sure which is bigger, quite frankly. One of them is cooling the planet and saving life on Earth from cooling the planet. Sounds pretty life-changing to me. Saving life on Earth for all life versus letting it go, continue down the death spiral. That's probably the single biggest historical event in the history of the world that we were actually able to change course, reverse, because before we were just on this crazy roller coaster. And then the roller coaster got influenced by humans in the wrong direction. Now we're talking about using humans to influence it in the right direction. So we're going to achieve it through collective intelligence. We're already practicing it right here in this meeting, in the press conference, in the block party, et cetera, et cetera. And now it's time for us to exponentiate it. And I'm totally serious when I say that, because frankly, if it weren't for the time crunch that we're in, we could do it without collective superintelligence. But given the time crunch, we need collective superintelligence, given the time crunch, and that given that we have a whole bunch of problems that we need to solve in parallel, a whole bunch of big problems. And Umair, you write about all of them. So you're like perfect to step into. I'm not going to use the word leader, because it's just the whole concept of a leader, the great man, whatever, who can just step up to the plate and lead. That's bullshit. It's all the most successful societies. Number one, they're matriarchal societies. And number two, they're very communal, very collective societies in terms of what I mean by success: happiness, health, and happiness, right? So, anyway, that was a tangent. Getting back to it, Umair, I'm simply inviting you to jump in and be a major part of this, which you absolutely can. You can sound the clarion call that will bring 8,000 of us together. I guarantee it. If you publish an article, okay? If you publish an article that says, hey, I'm inviting 8,000 people to come together, right? If you publish that article, I guarantee you minimum 8,000 people will show up. Guaranteed. Probably way more than 8,000, because word will spread that, Umair and others are summoning all of the awakened humanity to come together and do this. Do what? Cool the planet. Stop the destruction of the biosphere. Reverse the overheating of the planet. That's cooling. Not just stasis, not just flat. Oh yeah, we're just going to continue absorbing the same amount of heat every year. It's killing us. We can't take it. Not even another year of it, literally. We'll have an ice-free Arctic. As Guy McPherson said in the last press conference, September 23rd, make sure you watch the Guy McPherson segment of the September 23rd press conference. So my point is, we can totally do this. There's no reason to get depressed, dissociated, anything like that. It's not like there's some big circumstance beyond our control. This is totally within our control.
Well, sorry, no, Jim, I have to come in there, like, but I kind of disagree with that last statement there. Know what you made, like, there's no need to get depressed, and this is all in our control. That is not actually the fact, because and the article that Umair's writing there, I agree with him totally as well, because every emotion he described there in the beginning of that article, man, he was describing what I was feeling every fucking day for the last couple of years now, dealing with this fucking climate issue, because I've been dealing with it for a number of years now, because of, as I said, you know yourself, I've been dealing with it for a long time now, so I know the ins and outs of it, I know the truth of it, and by Jesus, I'm going through the emotions of it. And everything that man described there, I thought he was talking about me. And I see Marco nodding his head, and we've been having conversations, and you know, it's not the only one either. And there are people getting up, and I have to say this as well for Umair's ears as well, that I've had conversations and having conversations every day with people that I'm meeting here around Ireland, and they're all complaining about being physically drained, exhausted, and don't understand why they're so tired and everything else. They just want to curl up in a ball and they're walking around like fucking living zombies. Well, they wouldn't have used that terminology, but they're walking around saying that they're in a daze. That's what they'd say here. Point is, they don't understand why they're feeling that way. And there is more than just there's a little bit more to it than just the acknowledgement and of the facts of the science and getting depressed from it. And when you really know the whole lot of it, like Umair writes a lot about it, so he knows what he's talking about, and now it's starting to weigh him down and get him down. And that's why he's feeling those feelings, because I've gone through and I'm going through it or through it. And I just want to say one or two things. Depression is something that everyone, if they get to know the truth of what's going on, they're going to go through fucking depression. They're going to go through what I went through and didn't realize it until I met Peter Miller online as well, which people can look up on YouTube. Near-term human extinction hospice conversations. And he's a qualified psychologist, but he heard about it. He went through the same process, and when he went through the process, I was going through the process, he realized he could help people with it going through similar. Anyway, I did a talk with him online, and it's on YouTube as well. But the point is, people are going through this and they don't know how to deal with it. And I thought I was through and over the worst of it last year, but I really wasn't, man. I was only 10. I thought I was after going through, the anger and the frustration and the fear and all that and everything else, but I wasn't. I was still going through serious depression there through the Christmas again. And it's something that people are starting to deal with now as a new consequence of a waking up and awareness of the climate situation. But there's also a physical attribute to it as well that people don't understand. And it's also because of the climate situation, because of the temperature has gone up, the global average temperature has gone up by 1 point, as the IPCC says, 1.3, but it's 1.6 really, or 1.8 now. Our core temperatures have also gone up by about 0.5 degrees, they'd say. And what they were saying was that what we're all feeling and experiencing is a change in our core temperature, and we all feel like that we're just under the weather or almost coming down with the flu and tired and drained and that kind of thing. And that's part of it as well. Our core temperature's gone up as well. We must remember when global warming is going up, so is our temperature as well. It's affecting us physically, mentally, and every other way now. And it's now becoming detrimental to our lives, and all life on Earth. And the fact is, we can explain how many there are ways we can deal with it. I don't think we need to force the facts down people's, or the intricacies of what's behind what we're trying to do at all. I think as soon as people, and unfortunately, for a lot of people, it's going to be until the building is on fire that they're going to start running for the escape doors, the escape and fire exits. That's what I'm saying. They're going to start running for help then, and what can we do about it? Only when they realize the fucking place is on fire. You know what I'm saying? So it's the people that I'm speaking to now are the people that Umair is referring to, the people who are depressed and who are exhausted and who are tired and bayed out from fucking climate. They're the people we should be addressing. There is a place for you to come and talk about this. It's right here where we're offering here on the block party and everything else. It's where you can talk to like-minded people who are going through the same emotions, but who are not lying down and fucking giving up and dying like the rest of them, who are trying to fight and do something about it. And by fight, I mean use our fucking brains collectively together. And there are answers there. There is no reason to give up hope, and there is no reason to just lie down and die. Yes, there is reason to be depressed, and there is reason, and it's necessary to go through it, but we'll go through it together and we'll fucking defeat this thing. If we can really get our shit together and collectively get together, we can defeat this thing. And that's what it's coming down to at the end of the day. This is a climate war, as Professor Peter Carter says. This is a climate war now we're in as well, you know what I mean? So we need to come together, because our fucking governments seem to be the enemy, because they're only fucking standing and for the corporates who are fucking caused all this mess. I don't mean we need to go out and fucking cause violence. I abhor violence, and I'm not advocating anything of the such or the like. I'm talking about collectively putting our minds together and collectively making it aware that there are answers, so that the public can make their governments work for them like they're supposed to be doing it. Simple as that. Sorry, Jim, for interjecting there.
No, don't be sorry, James. Please don't be sorry. I love it. Passing the talking feather.
Yeah, exactly what you described, James. Umair might have been writing my thoughts to his listeners, because everything he said ticked the box for me. And whether you think about it or not, everybody right now, if they look at any kind of news, they're bombarded with not just the COVID situation, but with the climate situation. They're bombarded with opposing political bullshit answers, or belief, or unbelief of the situation as it scientifically stands right now. And even if they go to their job and they don't think once about it, subconsciously that's all in there, and your brain deals, your subconscious deals with things you don't want to deal with. But at some point your subconscious can get just as overloaded as your conscious, and that's this dragging down, and this, oh, let's set the snooze for another hour, not 10 minutes. Oh, in another hour, it's set the snooze for, you know what, fuck it, let's take all the alarms off and I'll wake up whenever I wake up. Yeah, it's the bottom line. The point I'm trying to make is that even people that don't think they're thinking about it, they, in their subconscious, they're aware that the planet is overheating, and we're nearly doomed. The space here where we have to take massive action is in the next few months to a year, no longer. So anything we can do to, be here. This is kind of like therapy, to come here and to be able to talk about reality of the science of everything you described, just the emotional drain, but we still have to do something about the actual physical overheating of the planet. And there are answers, and we know the people that have answers. And come, let us help you, come yourself, Umair. We'd be so honored and pleased to have a discussion with you. And if nothing else, drop in one time on Friday is a good day during the block party, like midday, and check it out for yourself. Then you can write an article and invite your listeners, because I'm sure you'll be impressed. And that's me complete for now, passing the talking feather.
Yeah, even come in under an alias and don't come on camera if you want to do that. And just, I'll gladly just ask for some information about Professor Salter, and I'll gladly share his papers with you by email, and, look for it for yourself. It's all there. The truth is there, and right there on the table, as you know yourself. But I'm talking about the truth of the answer. There are solutions. Anyway, I think we should get on with the article. Passing the feather.
Very good. Well, 3 points I'd like to make. First of all, no hurry getting on with the article from my perspective, because this whole thing is about discussion. And the longer these go, the better. The deeper they go, the better. And there's a lot more good stuff in the article, to be sure. But anyway, I just want to give my perspective on that. Feel free to disagree. This is an open forum. Say no, speed it up. That's all good.
So you can, you've gotten this down pat by now. I'm sure you can put a timestamp as when this middle discussion took place, and so people can get to it, get around it.
Exactly. That's a great idea, Marco. That's a great idea. And we can further dissect it now that I'm getting good at dissecting videos. But anyway, no, that's right. And then people can just skip ahead, you know. Hey, the guys talked and talked and talked for 12 minutes. Okay, click. Let me get back to the article. Boom. So we really can have it all, I'd say. But anyway, that was the first point I wanted to make. The second point I wanted to make, I want to be really clear, is that when we say, hey, Umair, hey, man, you know, invite everybody, and at minimum 8,000 people will show up. Here's what we're not angling towards. What we're not angling towards is, hey, Umair, we got this super awesome venue. Bring everybody here to this venue. That's not what we're angling for, actually. In fact, I made a joke to Marco last night, but I'm actually totally serious about it. Umair, if you were to invite everybody to come, except for us, it would, and not even mention our names or anything like that, I guarantee you 8,000 people, minimum 8,000 people would still show up, same guarantee. And, you know, and I would just be delighted to see that happen, right? With or without me, I don't care. So I don't care about the venue, and I really don't care who's there and who's not there. We just need 8,000 of us to come together. So the joke I made with Marco last night, and this is on the preceding videos, is in an extreme scenario that literally that happened, that Umair just said, hey, I'm going to go do this. I don't need these losers. And, you know, I'll just go do this on my own venue. It would still be phenomenally successful. And I'd be happy, even if he didn't invite us. So let's leave it. Let's leave the venue. Let's leave the name. Let's leave all those as an open question, right? If like, but having said that, all that disclaimer, if you do want to do it on the press conference or the block party, delighted. Or if you want to come up with a whole new, you know, venue for it, a whole new name, a whole new concept, whatever, you know, it matters. It matters, but it doesn't, because whatever mistakes we make early on, as the thing exponentiates from 8,000 people to 80,000 to 800,000 to 8 million, we'll correct for any previous errors, as long as we don't make any fatal errors, right? And anyway, what we're really talking about here is the exponential growth of collective intelligence. And at some point we cross a milestone, a threshold called collective superintelligence, as I linked to in my last email, right? Just look for a video called Collective Superintelligence, and on my channel. So I wanted to be clear about that. That was the second thing. The third thing I wanted to say is I have those feelings too, but I have a magical antidote to those feelings. Action is the antidote to despair. So I'm not saying I don't despair. I just use the antidote quite liberally. And it works. We're in action right now. This is action. Some people might say, oh, it's just talk, it's not action. No, this is action. So I feel those feelings, and sometimes they're overwhelming, and sometimes I just feel so badly. Oh my goodness. And so I don't want to minimize any of that or in any way judge that, because I experience it myself, and I think it's healthy and normal. So in my first monologue 10 or 15 minutes ago, or whenever it was, I think I too quickly overstepped what James and Marco, you guys have so beautifully acknowledged as reality for pretty much all of us, right? I think I overstepped that. I apologize. And but I went right to the antidote, to the solution, which is coming together, forming a collective intelligence that grows exponentially, using this exponentially growing intelligence to come up with all the solutions that we need, including how to implement them, including how to get started, including all the above, because the collective intelligence will contain all these people with so many life experiences having to overcome similar obstacles, right? such as, myself. Look, I used to get depressed about a lot of things, but then here, I'm just going to screen share real quick from the press conference, the first big press conference that I did, which was years ago, May 30th, 2013. President Vicente Fox and I decided that we could end prohibition. I'll just play a couple excerpts. By the way, Diego Pellicer is my great-grandfather, the largest grower of hemp in the world.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Before I introduce our distinguished guests, I would like to begin with a quote from the late astrophysicist Carl Sagan.
Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead to where I introduced President Fox.
It's really quiet. I can barely hear it.
Profound honor.
Oh,
To
okay.
introduce to you a man who has
James, is
dedicated
it
his
different
life
for you?
to transforming his country
Yeah, it's a bit low, all right, but I
and
can
our
hear it.
world into a more peaceful, loving, and prosperous planet. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you the first freely elected president of Mexico, Señor Presidente.
Congratulations for that position. This state of Washington, has decided to lead a new path, a path to change the paradigm.
And in Berlin.
Okay, and that's all I wanted to say. Actually, this is the universe talking to us. Let me play this one last segment just because it's landing us there.
The Berlin Wall of the prohibition of cannabis is weak, and it is crumbling as we speak. And just as happened in Berlin in 1989, the old guards who used to protect the wall of cannabis prohibition are laying down their weapons and walking away. What remains to be done is to safely and systematically dismantle the wall of prohibition and replace it with a system of laws, international agreements, regulations, and standards to ensure a prosperous and, above all else, safe cannabis industry. We are moving forward. The states of Washington and Colorado are leading the way. We have waited long enough for some sort of a green light from Washington, D.C., telling us that it is okay to proceed. In fact, the silence from our nation's capital has been deafening.
All right, thanks for your patience. I know the audio wasn't the best. I don't know, we're gonna have to fix that somehow. But anyway, my point is very simple. We were facing not just oppressive governments, imperial governments like the United States, and international organized crime with essentially their own, government-sized forms of governance, assassination, execution, war, etc. We stood up to all of them, including the Obama administration, who I was referencing in that last quote. And between that and President Fox laying down the gauntlet of just how much this is destroying Latin America, as well as the United States, that forced the hand of the Obama administration. And they gave us a very public green light. So it can be done, and it can be done through press conferences that change the course of history. There we hadn't opened cannabis shop number 1, right? We're just proclaiming what we were going to do, right? And it changed the course of history. So action is the antidote to despair, and collective action. We can do that very thing. Imagine we hold a similar press conference with a mix of world leaders, and we announce we are doing marine cloud brightening. Period. Will it bring opposition? Yes. But just as this press conference, which went for like an hour and a half, it's all there. You can watch the whole thing. We had experts from medicine, from law, from the military, from government. We had all the experts there, right? We will have all the experts at the table when we do our press conference on marine cloud brightening. We'll announce it to the world. The world will find out. There will be opposition and there will be support. What do you think there'll be more of, support or opposition, as the world burns, right? So we've got a formula for success here. We just have to connect the dots. That's why I'm so, up and positive, because we really don't have time to spend too much time, feeling, helpless about it, right?
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, no, we're again cutting you into Jim.
No,
but
go.
I agree with what you're saying, and you don't. There was no need for apologizing either for what you were saying either there, because like we're all going through this similar thing, and of course I know that you're going through that as well. And but the point I want to make there is what you were saying there, like we will have the experts there at the press conference. We have the experts already in their field on our side. What I'm saying to Umar and Umar's listeners is come and listen to what they have to say. Make your own minds up then. We actually have the experts that know what's going on. And, you can join with us and actually, contribute to help. You don't have to be, sitting and depressed and feeling helpless like I did for a long time, like we all did for a long time. Jamin is right. You know what I mean? Action is the antidote, like. So I agree with that, definitely. Passing the fed up.
Thanks, James. And giving credit where it's due, it was Guy McPherson who taught me that phrase. I don't think he coined it himself. I could be wrong, but anyway, and he refers to it frequently. Action is the antidote to despair. And collective action. Did you know that nothing feels better than collective action? And I say that because in the book, Naked Conversations, the authors cite research that collective collaboration, working together for something good, activates the same receptors in the brain as making love. Why is that? In both cases, we are joining together and becoming something bigger, right? Something better, right? Aristotle wrote, the highest form of friendship is people coming together to work together for the common good. That's all we're talking about here. This is going to be massively successful. In some ways, it's you could think of it, if you wanted to have a mental model, think of it as a mega church, but for saving, healing, and transforming life on earth. And that feels good. You jump in, participate, you're co-creating with the rest of the collective intelligence. So anyway, both sides are correct. Umair, all those feelings you wrote about, absolutely valid. I felt them, we've all felt them, all those reactions, and they're perfectly valid. And volume 2 of what I'm saying, that was volume 1, volume 2 is we've got this if we choose. if we choose to believe that we've got this. And we work together with determination that we are going to bring together the 8,000 in a network of conversations going simultaneously. We have to commit to that. We got to believe. You got to believe. I believe it. Do you believe it? Because when you believe it, when you really believe it in your heart and your bones and your gut and your spirit, everything, when you really, truly believe it, there's nothing to get depressed about, and there's no time to get depressed. There is action. And we have to take it. It's now or never. This is our last chance. So let's come sailing out of the Last Chance Saloon with 1,000 red and white marine cloud brightening sailing vessels of the kind Marco sometimes puts on his screen. No pressure, Marco. I don't even know what device you're on. Don't worry about it. We'll get it up there. So, you know, I just want to give my context, because the thing is, if you read on in the article, and we'll read on to the end, somebody yell, shout, and scream if you hear a solution presented to all this, right? We've got like 4 really big solutions we're working on in parallel at any one given time, and usually on more than one at a time because they're all interrelated, okay? So we have exponential global warming. Thank you, Umair, for bringing back the original term. We have collective superintelligence as a goal, as our true north, which itself will be exponentiating. I mean, it's Ray Kurzweil's "The Singularity is Near," but it's here. Oh, thanks, Marco. Appreciate that. Those are the sailing vessels that will spray. You have to look at the image in the far, far back, unless you crop it differently. But they're all spraying. That's fine, Marco. That's totally cool. They're spraying filtered ocean water, pick up water from the ocean, filter it, and pump it through glorified shower heads that creates the fine mist that reflects sunlight back into space, as we talked about earlier. So I was rattling off what are the big things we're working on, you know, cooling the planet, collective superintelligence, feeding everyone plant-based foods, making plant-based foods freely available to everyone. Total paradigmatic shift there for lots of good reasons. And the 4th major area is a new story for humanity, which will be the foundation of a new culture, a new civilization, right? New ways of being, new ways of walking the earth, new ways of relating to each other, right? Anyway, with all that, I'm complete. Passing the feather.
I'm complete.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Marco. You're muted.
I was having some echo. A kind of continuation of the point I was trying to make earlier about people, you know, their subconscious is dealing with all this. And I've, you know, then there's other people that will from time to time recognize it consciously, like if it's brought up by me or someone else in conversation, even well-educated, very intelligent people. Example I've used before is my physical therapist. She owns and runs the clinic, and from time to time, she, you know, to get some one-on-one time with her, she does my therapy for the day, so we have that, you know, hour to talk. And when I first found out, this is 5-6 years ago now, that they're proposing a nuclear dump next, half a mile from the shore of Lake Huron, where they're going to dig a 2,000-foot deep hole and wide and fill it with nuclear waste, low-level nuclear waste from 20 different power plants in Ontario, and haul it all to the shore of Lake Huron and bury it in what they called bedrock that has been safe for hundreds of thousands or millions a year and will be safe. And then when I asked specifically what type of stone, they said limestone. And in my mind, I said, I learned somewhere in grade school the different types of stone and that sandstone is very porous. Why would you put nuclear waste that close to the shore of Lake Huron, which connects to the other Great Lakes, which is, argued somewhat between 20 and 25% of the world's surface fresh water, where, more than 40 million people get their drinking water every day, as well as all the, life and everything that a large ecosystem like, wet ecosystem like that can produce. And so I got all excited. I learned of this, and a group of us, we got together. We founded the Great Lakes Environmental Alliance. Several of us served on the board of directors. And so I was enlightening people, this danger 90 miles from where we live here in my town, they want to do that horrible thing I just described. And I was explaining it to my physical therapist, thinking, at least I have an educated, intelligent person to talk to. And she stopped me and she said, you know what? She said, that's great. I am so glad you're doing that. But she said, I don't even want to discuss it any further. She said, I can't think about that. She said, I have to run this clinic. I have to take care of, my husband and my daughters, or, the first one's going into college, the next one's going to be, coming up. She said, I have to take care of my family. And if I have to think about that and how serious that is, she said, I won't be able to function on a day-to-day basis. So thank you for doing that, but I can't. And we've got those people out there too. They're just overwhelmed. And it's like, they can't even think about it consciously because they wouldn't be able to function if they did. So there's every level of involvement now in the global overheating crisis. And we're having the discussions and then taking action after these, after and even during these discussions, there's action going on. And we just need more people to make it a full reality of cooling starting in the next few months. So anything, any question you have, Umair, you can bring it and ask it. And as Jamin said, we don't care who carries the ball forward. We will pass willingly and support behind it. However, we're here to find the best answer and put it in action, because we only have, at best 2003 summer, there will be no global or no solar sea ice left, but more likely it'll even be next summer 2022, where we will lose all sea ice during the summer. And you just don't lose the cold the ice provides, you lose the reflective surface that the ice provides. So without that protective reflection happening, then there's rays hitting the dark seawater and absorbing and adding to the warming effect exponentially. So very, very serious. And I understand there's the people that can't think about it, they won't be able to function. There's the people that don't understand it enough to know what position they want to have. And there's the deniers, which I don't even understand how they can exist. But together, however that combination works, Umair, we think since you so clearly with your articles have shown that you get it, that how serious this situation is, that any kind of collaboration we can do to get this ball moving forward, we're ready for it. And with that, I pass the talking feather.
Well, I just wanted to say, there, no, I was complete, but now that you said that, Marco, you just kind of made me think of something. And you know, as you were saying, like there's deniers and there's people who haven't got time to think about it, but know generally what's going on, and that, you know, people who are, you know, you only have to look out the window now or look at what's going on around the world and this year alone to know something's not seriously right. Like, so regardless of what their state of mind is about it, the point is why there's so much confusion and why people, there are deniers. As you said, you don't know how there are people like that. The reason for that is because our governments aren't telling people the truth of what's going on, because they think we're dumb and can't handle the truth and can't deal with, and we'll all freak out and everything else. Yeah, of course, that's going to happen. We're already freaking out. Those of us that know and even know that there are solutions are still going through those emotions, because everyone has to go through those emotions. You know what I mean? Because it's, you know, you're confronting your mortality, basically, your imminent mortality, if you put it that way. Like, if you want to, you know, be truthful about it. So, yeah. But the point is, if the governments had the balls to turn around and say, right, look, we need to tell people the truth so that they can go through these emotions and collectively do something about it. You know what I mean? Because when people are in jeopardy, they get together and they work together to get themselves out of fucking jeopardy. And that doesn't matter whether who's in the group or what enemies they had prior to that or anything else. And that was scientifically proven back in the 50s, where a group of professors took a load of kids out and, you know, gave them loads of different tasks and separated them and made them fight for, you know, supplies and stuff like that. And they really went at it, never left them do it, no, to see how they'd really react, like, to fight for survival, for supplies, until they created a situation where the whole lot of them had no water, and the only way they could figure out how to get water was if they worked together to do it. So all the problems dropped, everything dropped, because their survival depended on it. They had no water, so they worked together to do it, and they got themselves out of it. And that was what the fucking science project proved in the end. Like, when people are, when their backs up to the wall, all these other inconsequential fucking bullshit, fucking stupidity that us humans carry on with, none of it matters when your fucking life is at risk. Like, you'll just do anything to help you save your and your loved ones' lives. And that's what's at fucking stake at the moment. We gotta work together, because our leaders aren't doing that. They're working for those who are created the mess. Sorry, anyway, passing the feather.
Don't be sorry, James. That was perfect. Beautiful. You know, I would like to screen share a little image that kind of puts this in pictorial form, what we're talking about. So remember, I was talking about there's 4 main areas that we work on, right? Imagine that those 4 main areas are represented by the 4 white triangles on the screen here. And that each of those triangles becomes like a foundation for, like, a root system. And this kind of like 4-part beanstalk that just takes off from these foundational elements. And that this magic beanstalk grows into this giant tree, which, among other things, takes out each and every one of the 5 horsemen of the apocalypse, right? Pardon my chicken scratch here, but these are the 5 that Umair keeps highlighting. Stagnation, extreme concentration of wealth, economic stagnation, extreme concentration of wealth, global warming, pandemics, and the rise of totalitarianism and fascism, right? Reads like the table of contents of a children's book. Anyway, with this magic beanstalk, magic tree, whoosh, we create the vectors to eliminate all of these, eliminate and reverse, right? All these, right? And create a whole new world. So what are the 4 magical pillars? Anyone want to take a guess? What are the 4 magical pillars?
Food.
Pardon?
Food.
There you go. It's food. One of them is food. We got food for 500. Let me get the right implement here.
Water.
Sorry, let me just write these in.
Unless water falls under food.
Yeah, let's just put let's put food and water. Food and water, making these freely available. Plant-based food and water made freely available to everyone. What's another?
SRM.
All right, I'm just going to put cooling the planet. James, you mentioned the solution, SRM, solar radiation management, which is the solution, by the way. It's not like there's 100 different that we can choose from, which is the conclusion you get from reading Drawdown. Drawdown doesn't even mention the solution of solar radiation management, marine cloud brightening. They're focused on the wrong problem, frankly, which is decarbonization. That's the wrong problem for multiple reasons. Not that we shouldn't decarbonize, absolutely, but we got to do it in the right sequence. And step number 1 is cooling the planet through SRM, solar radiation management. I'll just write a little SRM down here. All right, we got 2 of the 4. What else?
Society again, you know, we got to change society, the rules of society again, the economy and everything.
Yeah, totally. So I'm going to put here that the foundation for all of that is a new story.
Yeah.
Charles Eisenstein and other writers write about a new story for humanity. And I believe we need that, but we also just need a new story for life on Earth, not just for humanity, special though we may be, tragic though we may be, right? We need a new story for all of life on Earth. And then the final thing for affecting this transformation of society, culture, economy, politics, and everything else,
Collective intelligence.
collective superintelligence. And collective superintelligence is something we're going to get to. It's on its own exponential. But once it crosses this crucial boundary, a crucial threshold that I read about from Nick Bostrom's book, Superintelligence, which is highly endorsed by Bill Gates and many other students of artificial intelligence. I quote from his book, once we cross this super threshold, that's when we become super intelligent. And we're getting there, we're very close. We're on this exponential path right now, right? We've figured out how to work wonders with press conferences. And we're just that's on its own exponential tear, right? We've got Dear Umair, right? Another major platform. Between these 2 platforms, I think we can do it. We can get enough momentum, get to the 8,000 folks. And I think that it'll only be probably days to weeks after we bring 8,000 of us together that the exponential growth will be such that we'll cross the threshold, probably in days to weeks. From amassing how many people? 8,000, that's 1/millionth of all of humanity.
God, Christopher.
Yeah, and get them all onto Trove.
Yeah, totally.
Onto the Trove network as well. Oh, Christopher, I haven't seen Christopher.
Oh, it looks like Christopher was trying to enter. Anyway, it looks like he's joining right now. So, all right. But anyway, here, let me just give and I'm not going to pause recording or anything, just because it's important that people kind of see how we roll here. Since Christopher is totally cool with recording, I don't have to pause and ask his permission. Christopher, we are recording. So And anyone can request a pause at any time, including you, Christopher. So if you want to pause, just ask for a pause. We're in the middle of an episode of Dear Umair.
I
And-
don't think Christopher can hear us yet because he
Okay.
doesn't have.
All right. Okay. Good point. Thanks, Marco. All right. Anyway, so let me just go back to what I was sharing here. Those are the 4 pillars to this magical beanstalk, magical tree that will solve all of these problems. Economic stagnation, extreme concentration of wealth, global warming, pandemics, and the rise of totalitarianism and fascism, right? Those are the problems that are making us so depressed, right? So if we can solve those problems, we won't have to be so depressed. Well, these are the secret ingredients for creating the collective superintelligence, right? And that's intentionally self-referential there, because each of these is on its own exponential, and we need the collective intelligence where it's at right now, somewhere down here, as it moves its way up here. Currently, you are here, right? We want to be here as quickly as possible, and then here, and then to 8,000, and then boom, we'll bust through. Once we do bust through, we will exponentially co-create the other pillars with much more effectiveness. With exponentially growing collective superintelligence, we will get marine cloud brightening done. I mean, done. Every last engineering problem, not just solved, but optimized. We will feed everyone with food and water. This will just grow like wildfire. It's such an amazing thing to do. And it is growing like wildfire. And a new story for humanity and a new story for life on Earth. Right? So collective superintelligence is kind of the linchpin, because it's going to really accelerate all these others while it's accelerating its own growth. Right? So it's all totally symbiotic. Anyway, with that, I'll stop screen share. I can share again if anyone wants to see. But the bottom line is, now, in the midst of all that, let's say we're having 1,000 conversations in parallel. Half of those could be grieving circles, right? I'm not saying don't grieve, between grieving circles, support groups, whatever you want to call it, right? Group therapy, whatever, because of all the things that Umair has written about up until the point that we broke off into conversation. Speaking of which, now I am ready to keep reading, but I'll pass the feather before then.
No, I'm good anyway, man. I think we covered it there anyway.
All right. After a brief pause, it's kind of like there's a binary choice that ultimately every person will have to make. Am I going to commit to solving our most daunting problems, our most wicked problems? Am I going to commit to that? Or am I going to just throw up my hands and just say, I'm just depressed, I'm in despair. My escapes are yoga, meditation, drugs, music, whatever. But no, I don't really want to deal with it, right? Like that person you mentioned, Marco, and we've all talked to people like that who just don't want to deal with it. So ultimately, it's a choice. Do you want to deal with it or not? Now, the unsophisticated way of not dealing with it is what that therapist did and said, no, I can't do this. I don't even want to talk about it. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to do anything about it. The more sophisticated way of not doing anything about it is to have all these very sophisticated intellectual philosophical arguments, and there's a handful of them, let's call them the dirty half dozen or whatever it is, right? But one of them is, well, if humanity goes, that's a good thing because humanity sucks. I'm going to mute you, Marco, because we're hearing the crinkling. I got you. Anyway, the argument, oh, humanity sucks, and so if we go, well, we deserve to go, so that's all fine. Duh. What the hell kind of argument is that? Are we going to do this or not? Duh. But baked into that is kind of this fatalism. So fatalism, it's like a philosophy. No, I would do something if there was something to do. There's just nothing to do. We're all about to die. And in fact, Guy McPherson and I have been in meetings, actual physical meetings pre-COVID, with numbers of people. One was a support group of people who could see that collapse is coming and wanted support. And so, and they'd go and share, and they'd share very much along the lines of what Umair was just writing about how they feel and how life has become so, pointless, futile, because we're headed towards, extinction, right? Near-term human extinction, NTHE. So I show up there with another, I'm just going to say collective intelligence activist, right? Guy and his partner there, and there's, I don't know, close to a couple dozen members of this support group in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I brought up cooling the planet with reflectivity. I'm not sure I knew the term solar radiation management at the time. I talked about reflectivity, mirrors, whatever, any forms of reflectivity. And this one man, this member of the support group, got very upset and almost started yelling at me, right? Saying, if you're thinking there's a way out of this, you're just addicted to hopium, like having hope was like being addicted to. Now, granted, this was before we knew what we know now about solar radiation management and the myriad different solutions. This is before Dr. Ye Tao got deeply involved and built a research team and all that. So this was very early on in these discussions. But I was just bringing it up as a possibility. Hey, maybe we can actually cool the planet and reverse this death spiral, right? But all that is to say that man, and there's a lot of them out there, who will heckle anytime Guy McPherson or his guests will start talking about actual solutions. They'll start heckling, right? And I think there's less of it now just because Guy has handled it in a very genteel way and asked them to, if you have something positive, constructive to say, please say it. But, so that's the easy way, sorry, not the easy, but the more sophisticated way, and probably in the end easier way of not dealing with it, is to deny that dealing with it can be effective, or to deny that it's even worth trying to deal with it, right?
Or to mock those who try.
Yeah, by mocking those who try, etc. So, it's kind of like that song from that song, Somebody I Used to Know, from like, I don't know, 2011 or whenever it was. You can get addicted to a certain kind of sadness, right? And it's true. If you want to get addicted to that point of view that we're all going to die, therefore all I need to do is freaking drop acid and feel good because we're all going to die. It's kind of like, Mark, I'm going to mute you again. It's kind of like, getting let out of school early in March instead of June, right? They don't have any homework to do. There's nothing to do but play. Why? Because we're all going to die in a few years. You follow me? And this was in 2017. In 2017, they predicted it was what's happening now, and what's been happening is very predictable. It's been predicted for many years, right? It's just taken us until now, literally right now, that we have such a committed community to cooling the planet, saving and healing the biosphere, saving and healing life on Earth, right? And transforming ourselves so that we never go into these death spirals again, right? And that we become a radically transformed humanity. Why not? With a massively upsized brain, our collective mind, our collective superintelligence, of course it's going to transform the rest of us, right? I mean, the major things that distinguished, in that whole chain from, the different primates all the way up to modern erect, humanity, right? The key inflection points were brain size. That was the key variable. The brain size kept getting bigger and bigger. Well, the brain size is about to go astronomical. Our collective mind. See, because right now, if a problem gets solved somewhere around the Earth, it's usually one person or a small team doing the solving. And that's one of the big arguments against collective intelligence is, well, we haven't needed it to come up with all this great shit. All this great what? Excuse me? We're in a death spiral. So the whole of all these, brilliant creations is a death spiral, right? So don't tell me about great when it comes to individual individual intelligence acting in the individual's selfish interest. Because that's not great. It hasn't produced great. It's produced death, mass death, right? The species we've extinguished are never coming back. So don't tell me about great. What's great is what is to be, what is to become. And that is a transformed humanity, a transformed culture, starting with the foundation of a new story for humanity, the new story, and for life on Earth. It's very simple. Humanity came along. We got this illusion of separation. We all, put on these paper bags over our heads with cutout eyes and mouths, and we all pretended that we were separate from each other. And we played that game for 10,000 years. And look where it's taken us, on the brink of extinguishing all of life on Earth. All right, it's time for a change, right? And it's time for a lot of changes. And one thing about collective intelligence that I'm clarifying now in the following way, there's only one collective. It's not like there's 27 different collectives. There's only one Earth, one world. It's just one of them. Now, collective intelligence is a facet of that. It's not equivalent to that. It's a facet of that, right? Collective heart is another facet of that. Collective spirit, collective soul, collective shared destiny, collective story, right? That's what binds together any culture, is a story. Usually.
Collective empathy.
Yes, exactly. So the collective really embodies myriad facets and dimensions and components and parts, right? And systems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So collective intelligence is just one facet. And I'm not even saying that it should be the one that decides this, that, or the other. No, but let it evolve and watch what it can do, right? And I think it's going to take us to just places beyond our wildest imaginations, because who's going to do the imagining is going to be the collective brain, right? The collective mind, the hive mind. Call it what you will. It's collective super intelligence is where we're going. And once we cross that threshold, the gloves come off and it just exponentiates from there. Check out Ray Kurzweil's book, The Singularity is Near, if you haven't already. And he wrote that in 2005, predicting all this. Now, although interestingly, he didn't predict it with collective intelligence as with artificial intelligence, which is actually a byproduct of collective intelligence, a very useful one. But we don't even need artificial intelligence to manifest an exponentially growing collective superintelligence. We let these things be the processors instead of AI. Okay. And paradoxically, one of the, again, the byproducts of collective intelligence include AI and include any kind of software that's worth a darn, including that which was written by one person, because it wasn't. It was written within a language that already solved, it solved so many of the problems. It's like a good operating system, a good foundation. So to deny the foundation is just ridiculous. All software is a byproduct of collective intelligence and continues to be. But my point is, we need great software. We don't necessarily need AI. We don't even need to go there. We can if we want. Now, the combination of AI and collective superintelligence, that's really going to be something, let me tell you. We've been envisioning this for quite some time as well. But the first milestone is collective superintelligence that is so smart, so capable, that in like a period of probably, I don't know, a week, could solve all the engineering problems that Professor Salter has identified that stand in the way of marine cloud brightening. There's two things that stand in the way of marine cloud brightening. One is solving these engineering problems. The other is $10 billion, okay? With that, we cool the planet. We roll out enough of that capacity, around 1,000 of these sizable ships, right? And we have enough capacity to actually cool the planet, not just stop the overheating, but reverse it. It'd be a hell of an accomplishment if we stopped the rate of overheating and left it constant. What an accomplishment that would be. It would be quite an achievement if we stopped any kind of overheating. So rate of overheating 0. All right, well, we still accumulated way too much heat and it's killing us, and it'll continue to kill us. The fire has been lit. So we actually need to do the opposite. We need to cool the planet, which is so ambitious. No one ever even talks about such an ambitious goal in the 350s, in XR, in the halls of government, United Nations, et cetera, et cetera. No one talks about cooling the planet or any serious campaign to cool the planet. They talk about leveling off emissions and getting to net zero by 2050. They are so asleep at the wheel. So absolutely delusional. See, it's time to bring back the boy who cried, the boy who laughed in the emperor's new clothes. It's time to bring back the boy who laughed out loud at the emperor's new clothes. Well, we're giving the boy something to laugh at. It's called the boops. The boops, and all those segments we did on the boops at the last press conference, which were amazing. That whole series at the very end, huh? If you haven't seen it, make sure you see it. The boops, right? Our last Dear Umair was called Dear Umair. It's all about the boops, right? And so we need to bring back the boy of the emperor's new clothes, and we need to make a big, both humorous and terrifying, because it's really both at the same time, right? We need both at the same time. The emperor sports his Johnson for a few minutes in a parade. That's one kind of tragedy. Extinguishing all of life on Earth is another, right? You see how they're a little bit different? Yeah. Anyway, so it's not just a funny thing like it was in the case of the emperor's new clothes. That was funny. So the kid laughed, and then everyone laughed, and then somebody threw a blanket on the poor sap, right? That was funny. This is not so funny, actually, though it may work if using humor is what it takes to open up people's minds and hearts and get them laughing, which is a way of getting them talking, right? It kind of breaks them open, right? Laughter. And it just transforms the whole situation. If we need to freaking bring some humor into it, well, then damn it, we'll bring some humor into it. And if we need to bring some boops into it, boops in heat, we'll bring in some boops and heat, you know, whatever, really, because we're doing this. We're not doing this. We are doing this. Go ahead, Marco.
You know, we're definitely doing this, and the thing about the boops is, it's very relatively easy to solve an over boopage problem. It's as simple as reflection. Simple as reflection. You know, the technology, even if we have to go, you know, with several options, marine cloud brightening, mirror project with mirror arrays reflecting, even if we have to use, you know, more than one method, it's still easily doable. It's just a little bit of effort on enough people, you know, that number of people that it takes to make a big project, heavy project, light by the use of many persons in many hands. And that's really all we need right now. We've got it. We've got enough answers to the situation of global warming, and, you know, along, you know, solar radiation management, along with the decarbonization that many of the drawdown people, they have many brilliant and ideas and learned, not necessarily even new ways of doing things, but old ways of doing things that we've abandoned, you know, like growing naturally and you know, either very small amount of meat eating involved in our diets, although meat is not necessary at all, and we'd all be better off if no one ate meat again. If we can at least reduce that consumption, it triggers so many things. There'll be less land that needs to be put into, you know, food for animals. That land can go back to nature and be, but those things all take time, and the solar radiation management is a thing that'll give us the time to do the things that we should have started doing as a minimum 50 or 60 years ago. So boops, it's all about the boops, and we have plenty of ways that work in concert with each other, you know, decarbonization, drawdown methods. But as we've, you know, been discussing the last few days with different people, engineers, scholars, scientists, that you can have all the same things. You need these 5 things to make it happen. If you use this one first, it won't work. If you use this one first, it won't work. But if you use this one first, the solar radiation management, humanity survives. And if you spend a little time, we can show you the science that definitely bears that out. So come and hear the good news.
Well, you want to hear some good news, Marco and James? You guys just inspired an artwork. Okay.
Oh, cool. I like that.
No, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. All right, James. I know I'm in the presence of greatness here, but oh, wait a second. I shared the wrong thing. I don't want that. I want this. Sorry. Share a screen. I actually want this. Here it goes. Okay. You see that? What do you see?
Boop reduction.
Boop reduction. Okay, we got boop reduction. Now, go down below. See what's going on here. It's like a thought, right? This guy is reflecting on boop reduction. He's reflecting on it, right? He's thinking about it. The punchline, boop reduction, reflect on it.
Good one, yeah.
What's that, James?
Very good. It's a good. That's a nice one. Oh, all right. Reflect on it.
Boop reduction, reflect on it. And then we've got another really cool thing that includes reflection, which is vegan reflection. We've got something called vegan reflection. You guys know about it. And it's basically a bunch of super cool vegans who get it, right? And with that, we've got 2 of the 4 pillars: cooling the planet through reflection, reducing the boops, actually making the boops go negative, but we don't want to emphasize that too much right now. Boop reduction gets the point across, right? Yeah, from boop retention to boop reduction. Boop retention, that sounds kind of icky. Let me write that down. Boop retention, right? There's another word for that. It's constipation. We're getting constipated on heat. That's exactly what's happening. We're getting just too much heat accumulating in this fragile system called Mother Earth and all of her life supporting systems, including, yes, her atmosphere. It's the Earth atmosphere system that's trapping all the heat. Specifically, it's the atmosphere that's trapping all the heat through the greenhouse gases. That much the 350s and XR got right. A+, gold star. Okay. What to do about it is where they've both fallen way short. They're just talking about decarbonizing. That's actually going to make the problem worse in the short term when we've only got months left to live. No. Now's not the time to make things worse in the short term. It's all about the short term now. We've got to survive the short term. And that means we've got to eliminate the boops and eliminate the constipation of heat, and then actually take a big dump. Have the boops per year go from 137 positive to maybe negative 137 boops per year. That'll be the rate at which we take a dump and get rid of the constipation of heat. Wouldn't that be cool? Of course it'd be cool. I think we've got it between reduction, constipation, retention, reflection, and boops, all that applied to boops. I think we got this, you guys. Look at how easy that was. It just flowed right out, so to speak. So let's take a big dump of all the constipated heat that we've accumulated, right? Anyway, boop reduction. You guys let me know if you want me to carry on with the reading or if there's more to say. Absolutely no hurry, as we've learned, thanks to proper segmentation. Yet another facet of collective intelligence.
I'd say carry on with the article.
All right, let's do it. Let's
Back us up a couple sentences.
Happy to do that, Marco. Happy to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay, here goes.
Red background.
Oh, thank you, Marco. And I'm actually going to rewind a whole paragraph just to give us a nice running start.
Sweet.
Yeah. Refresher.
Yep. Okay, so back to reading. Read equals reading. The first thing that I noticed, if I looked at myself, was that almost the instant I woke up, my mind was shutting itself down. Snap. It was like it decided all by itself to operate at a quarter speed. I'd struggle for words to make decisions and so forth. Now, any good psychologist would probably have noted that this was a kind of protective measure, a defense mechanism, kicking into high gear. Technically, several at once: denial, compartmentalization, possibly regression, maybe even a little bit of dissociation. But from what? Such a sudden, intense defensive posture tells us that a mind is under acute pressure, tension, conflict. It prefers the bliss of ignorance to the anxieties of a dreaded reality. Snap, shut down. And I think that's as far as we've got. In the case of you and I think the cause of that tension, that pressure, that conflict is pretty easy to understand. Who wants to wake up and read the news? Who wants to pore over the grim headlines anymore? We say casually that they're full of bad news, but the truth is a little tougher to bear. To constantly read a litany of things like your society's broken, the pandemic's not ending, the planet's melting down, elites have left you broke, and the fascists are rising. It's psychologically ruinous. Dude, he's hitting it outside the park. Go, Umair. Human beings don't need to be awash. No, sorry. Human beings don't need to be awash in a warm bath of good news. That's destructive too. But when reality itself has turned into something like a grotesque, bizarre dystopia, then just making contact with that reality, is deeply psychologically stressful. How stressful? Like me, during the course of 2021, many of my friends began to develop trouble sleeping. Not just minor league trouble, but staying up many nights a week levels of trouble. Now, all this is doubly ironic for me because I stay up all night anyways, because the sun can melt my blood. So there I was, staying up all day, staying up all night. No sleep till the apocalypse. It should have occurred to all of us sooner, I guess. If we'd talked about it. Listen to this. Listen to Umair's own words. If we'd talked about it, noticed, we would have soon uncovered the next thing a good psychologist would. We were going into hypervigilance and hyperarousal. Another sign of severe psychological distress, this time bordering on trauma. Now, another irony was I'd written many times over the last couple of years that I thought this era was leaving many people with low-level PTSD. How absurd and funny then that I didn't see it in my friends and myself when it was right in front of me. Really, you might wonder, PTSD? Come on. But that's exactly what I think a good psychologist would and should say about many of us today. Maybe not that we have PTSD, but certainly that we have been traumatized. To be traumatized is to be exposed to death, of violence, to feel threatened with one's own non-existence or that of a loved one. And a good psychologist would know that none of that has to be direct. Listen to this. You don't have to be the one who is hit by an abuser to be traumatized. Ain't that the truth? I'm going to read it again because I didn't finish the sentence. You don't have to be the one who is hit by an abuser to be traumatized by abuse. Right? Right now, we're being traumatized by mass death. Right? You know, so sometimes I kind of feel like and really we, I should say, I feel like we are like the proverbial, little baby in the biggest town and city in Cambodia with all the big pagodas and everything at the time of the Khmer Rouge. He's just absolutely bewildered, probably covered in blood, stumbling along. Everyone's dead, right? And this little baby comes wandering out, still alive. That's us. We are collectively this wandering baby in Cambodia, early 70s. I don't know if you ever saw that. It's kind of an iconic little video clip from that time. But we are collectively that little lone surviving baby, totally vulnerable, in the middle of a dying world. Oh, what? And we're supposed to not have psychological problems over that? Give me an Irish break. Give me an Irish break, with a nod to the most commonly used word in all of Ireland. Give me an Irish break.
Yeah, give me a fucking break, that's right.
So spot on. Anyway, I should have turned my screen off of red for all that rant. Let me just flash it anyway, just in case someone's scanning through. Hey, in case you're scanning through and you think I'm about to make some interesting commentary, that's not true. Hit reverse, and like the last few minutes of the last red segment is actually supposed to be not red. So I'm just going to flash back and forth to help make that point. Okay, point made. Back to reading, unless you guys have any more comments to do. And just remind me, please, if I forget to change the color. Back to you guys.
No, I'm good. Let's say carry on.
I'm good as well.
Okay. Onward then. You don't have to be the one who is hit by an abuser to be traumatized by abuse. You merely have to be in proximity to such a thing for the experience to ripple out and strike you too. Sound familiar? Death is all around us. My God, the pollinators, they're all, not all, but 80% gone, more in some cases. But isn't that precisely what this age feels like? Proximity to, if not direct experience of, relentless, gruesome, needless abuse after abuse. Abuse of power, abuse of societies, abuse of democracy, abuse of technology, abuse of the planet, abuse of women, abuse of our health for profit, violence against the vulnerable, and indifference to life and truth and decency, predatory profiteering, greed, devastation, fire, famine, flood, skyrocketing poverty amongst soaring riches. You know, there's one thing he didn't mention there in his list of abuse, and it's very telling. Anybody want to guess?
Children.
That's true. He didn't mention that. That's very good. That's very good, James. There's one other that occurs to me. I'll just say it then. Abuse of animals, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
You know, abuse of animals. All right. Wouldn't watching all of that makes any sane person burn with rage, pound with anxiety, shudder with dread, and go cold with panic? It does me. And I think that you are the only person you're kidding is yourself if you pretend it doesn't do just that to you on some level too. You know what this feels like to me? This feels like being a student in the most bullying middle school in the United States. And that's saying a lot, by the way. My God, I wouldn't want to spend a minute in that place. But it sounds like being in the most bullying middle school in the entire United States, the most bullying nation on earth. And then suddenly, I was going to say the president of the United States, so it's been a while since we've had one we can be proud of. But imagine like President Kennedy walking into that school.
We're in red again when we're.
Oh, thank you, Marco. Thank you. Okay, I'm back to commentary. I should have been non-read like 2 minutes ago, so please rewind a couple of minutes if you want that commentary. It feels like being a student at the most bullied middle school in the entire United States, and then President Kennedy walking in, everyone just like paralyzed, and him rounding everybody up and with a megaphone saying, "The bullying stops now." And yes, I said bullying, right? It's like if you're going to solve the problem, you have to name it. The problem is abuse. We've all been suffering from it. Many of us have gone Stockholm syndrome, started identifying with the abuser, and then going out and trying to be sociopaths ourselves. I've certainly been guilty of that. Identifying with the abuser and becoming one, right? Anyway, I'll go back to red unless either of you, I passed the feather.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay, thanks, guy. Going back to reading. James, you're unmuted. Let's see. Thanks. So he talks about all the abuses, all the forms of violence. fire, famine, flood, skyrocketing poverty amongst soaring riches. Wouldn't watching all of that make any sane person burn with rage, pound with anxiety, shudder with dread, go cold with panic? It does me, and I think that you are the only person you're kidding is yourself if you pretend it doesn't do that to you on some level too. This, my friends, is a traumatized time, generation, milieu, society, world. Imagine watching your house burn down. Imagine being in a car crash. Imagine watching a highway pileup happen in front of you every day, over and over again. We might not be there physically, but that is precisely where we are psychologically. We are forced to watch our own house burn down or be burned down every day. The house of democracy, the planet, the future, society, prosperity. Forced to watch our neighbor suffer while we look on, helpless. What's worse, it's addictive. And it's always on, like a weird, gruesome, spectacular machine of destruction. It's a click away. Just tap that Twitter, Facebook, whatever, and wham, there's this age's choice of catastrophes on auto repeat every instant of the day or night. You know, as I'm reading this, it sounds like some, diabolically designed Clockwork Orange daycare for humans, right? They're forcing our eyelids open, putting in droplets of water to keep them moist, but forcing us to watch, right? Except instead of, yeah, go ahead, James, go ahead.
Ever since they put the little magic box in the corner of everyone's sitting room.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I grew up with television. You know, when I was in middle school, it made me so mad. It made me so mad. Listen to this, you guys. My mother ordained that we would only have 3 hours of television per week. 3 hours. The television didn't live in the living room. She literally put it in the closet. She put the TV in the closet. And true story, one day she threw that television over the edge of the balcony, past the basketball hoop, and down to the concrete patio below. Crash. Crash. And it's not just always going, oh, wait, sorry. There's this there's this age's choice of, oh, thanks, Marco. Yeah, thank you. And by the way, pretty much every time we've gone non-red, we were late in going non-red, so you may need to rewind. There's this age's choice of catastrophes on auto repeat every instant of the day or night. You can't really escape it unless you decide to forsake the modern world and become a hermit. And it's not just always going this machine. Sometimes it feels better to watch it than not to watch it, because at least bearing witness is the responsible, mature thing to do. He says, at least bearing witness. As if the rest is what, optional? Here's the thing, the rest is actually unknown to Umair at this point in time. A few weeks ago, he wrote about planting trees, right?
Oh, and we're ready.
I mean, it's not that planting trees won't help, but it's like, you know, the movie Rebel Without a Cause, James Dean? Okay.
Yeah, you still have red background.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Marco. That James Dean movie, Rebel Without a Cause. Remember when they had the race to the edge of the cliff? James Dean jumped out of his car, rolled to safety. The other guy didn't make it out of his car and went over the cliff. Now, there was a moment when he realized he wasn't going to make, he was going over the edge of the cliff. That was his destiny. At that moment, he could have stuck his hand out, created some air friction. Now, would that have slowed the car's advance towards the edge of the cliff? This is kind of a trick question, but it's actually a very precise question with a very precise answer. Would sticking his arm out and creating some air friction, would that have slowed the advance of the car towards the edge of the cliff? Yes or no?
Yes.
That's right.
Just not significantly enough.
Barely enough to make any kind of difference at all, right?
Probably take some pretty accurate equipment to measure that.
Oh, it would take, you could actually, well, actually, you could measure it pretty accurately with known coefficients of air friction at different speeds and all that. So it wouldn't be that hard to estimate it. It might slow it down by 1/100 of a second or something like that, right? But he's still cruising over the edge at friggin' 40 miles an hour, 35, something like that. It ain't pretty.
This is kind of an example, again, this little bit of conversation here of the collective intelligence. I have the, you know, the logic to know that sticking that hand out the arm out would slow, and you have the math to know how to calculate it. You know, I'm lacking in the math education, but not in the understanding of these things when they happen. And when necessary, I can always fall back on you to feed me the math if it's needed. So this is awesome.
Thank you. But great answer, Marco. Absolutely 100% correct. Yes, it slows the car's advance. We could probably measure it. It might be instead of 35 miles per hour when they're cruising over the edge of the cliff, it's 34.92 miles, right? You know, like a tiny fraction slower, right? But it's, you know, it's kind of like the amount of peanuts that are actually in some non-peanut product that was manufactured at a facility that makes peanuts. You know what I'm saying? There's going to be like, I don't know, a 1/100th of a microgram of a speck. But, you know, some people are so sensitive that they need to know that, because there's always a chance that it's a whole microgram and not a fraction of a micro, you know what I'm saying? I mean, they wash that equipment after all.
It's
right.
very much in the same concept of if 20, you know, inside a room with still air, no circulation at all. If you stand 30 feet away from somebody and you cut an onion open, the person 30 feet away smells that onion almost instantly. And when you smell, you actually have some particle of the onion.
Sure.
Coming, you know, so these.
No, it's a real thing. I'm not discrediting the, you know, the advertising that a certain food was made in a facility that processes nuts. I'm not challenging that in the slightest. What I am saying is this: that the amount of cooling that everybody going out and planting trees and all, the amount of cooling that that would result in over the course of the next 12 months, right, is about as much as the amount of peanuts in a jar of a non-peanut product that was made at a facility that also processes peanuts. So it's barely measurable, actually. It's barely measurable, but here's the punchline. It's a barely measurable amount of cooling that planting trees would have in the next year, but it is enough to kill you. What? Planting trees is going to kill? Yes, it is enough to kill you. It's enough to kill you if you go out and plant trees and then believe that that's enough. That's what'll kill you. And it'll kill me too. And it'll kill Marco. Look at Marco, tickle me. It'll kill that lovable creature. He'll be dead. Same with James, right? So same with you, same with all of us, right? It's going to kill us all. That little amount of cooling, because if in our minds we've blown it up to be this huge amount of cooling, we need to go from positive 137 boops to something like negative 137 boops. Really, really fast. Trees ain't going to get us there. There's two ways to cool a planet. One is to reduce the greenhouse gases. The other is to increase the reflectivity. Those are the two ways to cool a planet. Planting trees will reduce the amount of carbon in the atmosphere. That's a fact. But it's also a fact that that dude sticking his arm out the window when he's going 30 miles an hour is not going to appreciably slow the car. It will slow it, just not measurably, right? Not an amount that anyone can measure other than, very sophisticated physicists doing the experiment, right?
And not in an amount that will save a life.
No, but yes, in an amount that can kill you if you believe that that's the solution. See, he should be focused on jumping out of the car, not sticking his arm out to try to create some air friction. We should be focused on cooling the planet, not planting a bunch of trees and then feeling good about that. Alone. And I have a similar discussion with a lot of vegans. And I say veganism's great. That's why, we're doing food healers and climate healers and so many cool things together as a community. But it's not enough. See, and it was the fact that it was not enough that inspired vegan reflection to come into being. And God bless vegan reflection for coming into being, because we need both those things. See, we need the food part, we need the reflectivity. Reflect on that for a while, right? Boop reduction, reflect on that. Boop reduction. Isn't that cartoon perfect? How's that not going to go crazy? How's that not going to go crazy? And listen, that emerged on Dear Umair. Umair, look at what you're making us do, right? You've inseminated us with your logic, your story, your personal story, and that's opened us up to share as generously. That's all that's going on here. So this is your doing, Umair, hence the name, Dear Umair. All right, I'm passing the talking feather.
Well, as he said earlier in the article, are we going to be that kind of a species because we didn't come together and talk? And we are here doing exactly that and asking for people to come and talk. So there are people out there doing it. There's plenty of others out there. There's just not together doing it collectively. And that's what we're pushing for constantly. And, it is getting there. It was growing, exponentially, hopefully even faster. But, we need all on board now at this stage. Like, the hurricane's coming, the squall's coming, and we better fucking batten down the hatches and get together and work together to keep the ship afloat. Like. Simple as that.
Yeah, it's collective effort, definitely. And it's not we can have enough people working on the right things to do and still fail because one group is almost there, group is almost there, another group is almost there in solving the overheating problem, but time is against us. And separately, we may not get the whole solution done in time, but if we are together and work, it gives us, there'll be a lot of overlap, but there'll be some progress in a different direction from each group, that if we're all together, we get to that solution faster. So definitely the more people that get involved with ideas that maybe we haven't even heard of yet, the better our chance of surviving the sixth mass extinction now in progress. And with that, I pass the talking feather.
Yeah, the sixth mass extinction now in progress, and with us as the Humpty Dumpty on top of the crumbling wall. Where do we expect to end up? Einstein. Passing the feather.
And possibly, the point, Umair, where you said, imagine your house burning in front of you. Imagine being in a car accident or watching that car pile up. Well, I have 4 letters there, BTDT. I've been there. I've done that. All of those. So, and I'm sure there's other people out there that have had, these multiple things be in their direct sphere, experiencing it. And so maybe that's part of my ability to see the problem for what it is and know we need to act, and action's the only thing that's going to, communication and collective action are what we need. And so we just need to reach out and touch enough people that, and I really like those examples: house burning, car accident, car pileup. There's plenty of people that will relate to that, and if they can just, that's not something they have to imagine. So they can use that to understand the desperate situation we're in now with global warming or overheating. It's not just warming; it's the overheating that the warming is causing. So.
Yeah, you were making some really good points about separation there, Marco. There's a Hollywood movie about this guy who's a farmer somewhere out in the Midwest, and he builds his own rocket ship in his own barn. And then one day, after a series of failures and successes and this and that, one day he blasts off and flies around the world and lands somewhere safe. And that's promoting a myth, which is beyond ridiculous. And the myth is that each of us kind of working separately, doing our own thing, right? Each of us makes a little part of the rocket, and then some dude on a farm buys all the parts and assembles them. Bullshit. It took collective intelligence to put people on the moon. In fact, NASA is one of the finest examples of collective intelligence there is. But listen to this. Actually, I think the collective intelligence of the Lakota is much more powerful. But anyway, that just got me reflecting for a minute. I'm also thinking about the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese in the Vietnam War. Anyway, there's so many examples of collective intelligence out there. But the bottom line is this. Back to NASA, okay? That whole collective intelligence that was assembled, and put people on the moon, there's one very significant fact that people have often overlooked, and that is that assemblage of NASA into the organizational structures. Think like, the organogram or whatever they call it, the whole HR inverted tree diagram, org chart, that's what people call it. That whole org chart with all of its divisions and everything else, right? I don't think that came with Moses down the mountain that day, and it was like an appendix. Here's the org chart for NASA. No, I think that one was actually designed by humans, right? I think it was designed by humans. Okay. I'm trying to be funny or cynical or something. It was designed by humans. I don't think that, I know that. So that collective intelligence that put people on the moon, it was designed. Now, what medium do they use to design it? Conversation, right? A bunch of old white guys with short hair met around. This is how it happened, right? A bunch of old white guys with short hair sat around, except for Kennedy and his brother and a couple others who had longer hair. Other than that, it was a bunch of dudes with short hair. They all got around a big conference room table and said, all right, how do we do this? Right? Mechanical engineering, go. What do you need? Okay, propulsion, what do you need? Okay, electrical, what do you need? Right? Vacuum systems, what do you need? Right? Materials, what do you need? Logistics, what do you need? Military support, what do you need? Private sector support, what do you need? Government support, what do you need? Mr. President, we need you to make a speech. Oh, yeah? Like what? Like we're going to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade? That was all conversation. That was all conversation. All right? That created public support. So anytime anyone got a call from NASA in the private sector, they snapped to it. It was an opportunity to be on the moon. Like Tang, for example, the famous drink of all things. My goodness. Ain't that America, right? Promote some sugary drink that'll make your teeth fall out, as something that powers the rocket ship or something. Anyway, collective intelligence, conversation. Conversation is the heart of any collective intelligence. And we have way too little of it. And what we have is way too wasteful. It's people arguing with each other, or someone trying to convince someone who doesn't even have the basics to understand what they're trying to convince them of, but they try anyway, because that's what we do, because it sounds impressive or whatever. We're so screwed up. We need to get it together. We need to bring together the 8,000 that will push us very quickly from there towards the critical threshold from collective intelligence to collective super intelligence. And again, I point to the video by the same name, where I quote Nick Bostrom in his great book, Super Intelligence. On the front of that book, on the front cover, there's a singular quote by Bill Gates. Here's the quote: "I highly recommend this book." That's Bill Gates standing up and down and screaming, shouting, tearing off his shirt at a football game. That's him being excited. That's as excited as he gets. I highly recommend this book. And I quote from, anyway, the bottom line is we're almost there. And this will get us there. And Umair, you want to be the dude who goes down in history? Blowing the bugle, proverbially, rounding up 8,000 people, that's within your power, Umair. That's within your power. My dear Umair, that is within your power. That's why we spend hours every week talking to you, talking about you, right? We're like the mirror image negative of that Hollywood movie. What was it? The Truman Show, where he's being broadcast to the world, thinking he's living a normal life. We're like the mirror image of that. Umair, we're your audience broadcasting to you 24/7, but you don't even know we exist. Isn't that hilarious? Well, he's about to find out. You're about to find out, Umair. And the fact that it took this many episodes is not, has nothing to do with you. It's because we hadn't published yet. We still haven't published. So anyway, you're off the hook, Umair. Anyway, passing the feather.
I just had a thought there, you know, there's millions of people out there, like, and there as types of people know that we're talking about, and Umair mentioned as well, like people who try to tune out of reality, you know, it's deflecting and what have you, and all this, like, and all types of methods are used, but one of them is going online and playing games, you know, video games. People escape into video games online, and very popular game which millions of people play. I'm aware of. I never have even tried to play it myself, but Minecraft, I heard about it. Like the kids and adults play it as well, and it's all about building your own society and looking after it, and how to actually survive by making alliances as well as. But you end up with enemies or people just attack you because human beings are being human beings, obviously. But the point is, I get so frustrated when I hear about millions of people online trying to live in an alternative reality when we can all get together and actually build an alternative reality to what we have to this day, like, and get ourselves out of this shit that we're in. Like, we could actually do it for real. Like, if people got off their fucking computers for that purpose and got on the computers for this purpose and actually do it for real. Like, you know what I mean? I just put it up there as a fucking challenge. Like, get off your arses and get out of the video games and play the real game of life.
Well, but the coolest thing is, James, this is a video game, right? Can you imagine being like, I don't know, the son of some Russian czar, and for your birthday, they rounded up 8,000 people to do a real life game with you?
Yeah, true.
Guess what, James? You don't have to be a son of a Russian czar to have exactly that experience. There's going to be 8,000 people showing up, and you get to interact with all of them however you want. You get to go from room to room. You get to go up to the speaker and say, hey, man, I want to challenge what you're saying, right? You have to add value. So it can't be stupidity. No stupidity.
The game is save, heal, and transform life on Earth.
That's right. The game is the shit, because it's save, heal, and intentionally transform life on Earth. The game is the shit.
Yeah, it's the real game, like.
The real game. It's the real game of saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth. That's the real game.
Huh? And I dare people to get involved.
Guess what? It's the only game in town. It's the only game. Everything else is jerking off. Right.
I have to say, no, I have to apologize for my language, and I know this is going to be going up on YouTube, so we might have to bleep it out or something, but I'm Irish, and I have to explain that because we are to a multinational kind of audience, like, so sorry about the language. I'm Irish, and
it's no problem,
because I'm really trying my best to refrain from a lot of it, like, but it does. I don't mean no offense. It's just Irish.
James, for you to not drop F-bombs. Let me speak to you in Irish. That's fucking impossible, lad. That's fucking
impossible. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's fucking impossible for me too, but I'm trying to keep it down to a minimum. So, sorry, anyway, carry on.
That's like me at age 15 trying not to jerk off. Good luck. Anyway, so I'm passing the feather. I'm complete.
Yeah, well, I'm complete there on that as well. Like, I just think, it's time for people to snap out of it and get into reality. Like, we have to fucking get in the game and save ourselves. Like, it's as simple as that. Like.
And it is a video game. It's the only game in town, right? And it's the shit. And you get to play with 8,000 super cool people, right?
And possibly more.
who love you. They're not doing it for the money like the son of the Russian czar. They might want to slit your throat. These are people who love you and who love life, all life. Not just all life, except the animals that I like to eat every night, right? And the ecosystems that had to perish to produce that quantity of meat and dairy. Anyway, sorry for the tangent. No, I'm not. People who love you and love life. And it's okay to disagree. It's okay to disagree, okay? On our very first collective intelligence block party, we had Dr. Silas Rao and Dr. Alan Savory, not doctor, just Alan Savory. Both have been, well, I don't think Alan Savory's been mentioned on your comments, but and the two, Dr. Silas Rao being the big vegan leader, international vegan leader. And they talked and they disagreed and they were civil about it. They disagreed passionately with each other and they were civil about it. It's okay to disagree in the realm of collective intelligence. It's essential, actually. Not to do it all the time necessarily for the sake of it. No, but when it comes up and we deal with it. And we usually end up with a synthesis, the thesis, the antithesis, and then finally the synthesis of between the two, where the two get resolved on a higher plane, which often requires a dimensional enhancement. Collective intelligence is nothing more than a bunch of dimensional enhancements to our already formidable intelligence. So it's the only game in town. And I think framing it as a game, the boop reduction game, let's all play the boop reduction game. Reflect on it. Or the boop reflection, I don't know, whatever. I think we've got enough raw material for some good nameage for the gameage. Boopage. It's the nameage of the gameage. Boopage. Anyway. We are forced to, yeah, go ahead.
Back to red.
Back to red, thanks. We are forced to watch our house burn down or be burned down every day. The house of democracy, the planet, the future, society, prosperity. Forced to watch our neighbor suffer while we look on, helpless. What's worse, it's addictive and it's always on. Like a weird, gruesome, spectacular machine of destruction. It's a click away. Just tap Twitter, Facebook, whatever, and wham. There's this age's choice of catastrophes on auto repeat every instant of the day or night. You can't really escape it unless you decide to forsake the modern world and become a hermit. And it's not just always going, this machine. Sometimes it feels better to watch it than not to watch it. Because at least bearing witness is the responsible, mature thing to do. And so we watch our house being burned down by this giant machine of ruin, obsessively, compulsively, I would add fanatically, never quite fully knowing that the price is anxiety, dread, panic, powerlessness, hopelessness. In short, trauma. He left one thing off the list. I'm going to add it in, but I'm going to reread it. Never quite fully knowing that the price is anxiety, dread, panic, powerlessness, hopelessness. and death. See, we need to say it. We need to bring back the boy who laughed when the emperor was naked in the parade. We need to name it. The last few of the short segments at the end of the press conference on September 23rd, 2021, the last few of those segments deal with this whole, boy in the emperor's new clothes versus the boy who cried wolf. Remember how they teach us, don't be the boy who cried wolf. Everyone's afraid to say, hey, this could happen. Because guess what? If it doesn't happen in the time frame that they predicted, everyone says that they're an idiot. Look what they do to Guy McPherson for speaking up, right? So we're taught not to cry wolf. Sorry, back to reading. Anyway, never quite fully, this is what Umair wrote, never quite fully knowing that the price is anxiety, dread, panic, powerlessness, hopelessness.
Yes.
Thank you. In short, trauma. But Umair didn't write that, you did. That's probably why we're having less sex, why we're so depressed, why we're so unhappy, why we're committing suicide more and more. We've been traumatized, burned out on collapse, and we don't quite know it. But only a traumatized world, society, time, generation, place ends up like that. Feels so powerless, hopeless, desperate, guilty, ashamed, bad. You can tell me you don't feel those things, and maybe you yourself don't. But what else does it say when the pulse of society is taken today and what it beats with is despair, fury, and sorrow? It's obvious to say that people worry these days. What happens if I get cancer? Will I have to off myself so the kids don't have to pay medical bills? But that is being traumatized. It's not a thing that anyone should have to worry about in a remotely normal or decent time, society, or place. And yet that's just the beginning. I've come to think that we live in something like an age of trauma. Many of us are instantly traumatized from the moment that we wake up. Today, this school was shot up. See that poor guy? He had to crowdfund insulin. Those little children got COVID because their parents refused to give them masks. The planet's melting down. The rich are profiting off a pandemic. Your income hasn't gone up in decades. How are you going to survive? These are just everyday thoughts that might be provoked by simply glancing at the news, Twitter, Facebook, and so on. But they are also the stuff of panic attacks, of palpitations, of profound distress that must be buried deep where it isn't seen or felt. They are the stuff of trauma. They are the living essence of a constant exposure to death, to non-existence, to violence. I'm burnt out on collapse, and I'd bet you are too. We need to take better care of all of us. Hello, that's what the collective is all about. You're almost there, Umair. We need to take better care of all of us. We need to take better care of the wounded parts of us, individually, as societies, as a world. And to do that, the reverse, strangely, maybe beautifully, is also true. We need all of us to take better care of each other too. So hang in there. Stay loving, stay gentle, stay kind. Sleep, rest, breathe, eat well. Taking care begins with the basics. Above all, stay true. It's okay to admit it. This has been a terrible, unforgiving, horrific couple of years. It's been a psychological catastrophe for all of us. You don't need to keep it inside. It's the greatest gift that you can give, to share your burdens sometimes. That way we grow. Umair.
Well, once again, nice job, Umair.
Yeah, boola boss, boola boss.
Yeah, beautiful stuff, Umair. And we need to read the comments. So why don't we take a little break? I don't know, how are you guys doing energy wise? Here, let me pause. All right, Mark, after a brief pause, Marco, you're on a roll. Go for it.
Yeah, it's, you know, when I was taking medication and my doctor prescribed it for depression and it didn't work, and then, you know, get done with that one, take another one, it didn't work, you know, by the fifth one, I'm like, this is ridiculous. And she's like, no, we just have to find the right one. And I had another medication that made me severely depressed. I didn't get out of bed for a month. And fortunately, my sister was around and she said, this isn't right. This isn't you. Let's figure out what's going on here. And she said, you know, we went through the changes that have happened, you know, what's going in my life that she might not know about. And we narrowed it down to, oh, this happened to started a couple days after starting a medication. And my doctor again says, oh, you know, we'll just have to try a different one. And I said, but this was so bad that I went cold turkey off of it against her recommendation. And she said, no, just let's start another one and we'll find the right one. I'm like, no, I don't really want to do that. She said, well, you as a minimum, you should be along, even with medication, see a psychiatrist and get some counseling and some therapy. And I did that. First therapist didn't work out, or this first psychiatrist, either one of them. The second ones just made all the difference. And the point is, she looked at me and she said, thank God you're off of those drugs now. And she said, and my evaluation is you are depressed, severely depressed. You've got the post-traumatic stress from the accident and the anxiety. But she said, pills and changing your brain chemistry is not what you need. She said, your life is depressing. What you need to change is your circumstance. And that's what we need to do for the whole world right now. We need to change our circumstance. Our circumstance right now is we are well into the sixth mass extinction of life on this planet, which, you know, we're not exempt from. In fact, we're the cause of it right now. And we need to change that situation, and we'll have less depressed people. I'm sure there'll be, you know, individual reasons for people to, you know, be depressed in their lives, but at least we'll have this major, whether you admit it consciously or not, it's somewhere in your subconscious because we're bombarded with it every day in the news. Global heating, or less accurately called climate change, it's really a overwarming of the planet on, you know, beyond where life will be able to sustain. We need to change that situation. That's the cure for the, you know, the largest reason to be depressed right now, the end of life on the planet. So let's change that circumstance. And that's what we're doing with these conversations and with the scientific information we're taking and putting into action. So yeah, hope is we don't need a silver bullet right now. What we need is an alloy bullet of many strong and sturdy people. You know, we need a smelting of all the good ideas and good people, and make that alloy bullet that will shoot the greenhouse gases away from the heating trapped heat they're having. And the first step in that is solar radiation management. So very often the biggest answer to any kind of depression is action, getting out and doing something about your situation. And with that, I hope I didn't ramble too much there at one point, but I'm complete for now. Pass the feather.
Well, it's like, is it the, or as you said, Marco, we have to we have to go get together and do it. So what I reckon is, as we said a while ago, or as I came a while ago, talking a while ago, we need to play the new game, like the real game. So, you know, for those that don't know, realize what the real game is, just go online there for a while there and look at the IPCC report, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report that was just issued on the 9th of August. And yeah, it's a 400 and, you know, 400 and odd page technical document and whatever and everything else. But you can also go on YouTube then and look at videos that are just explaining a lot of it in simple terms. So it's not for the one to, in other words, like, unless you just want to try or you don't want to bother, then you don't want to bother. But for those who want to bother and who are willing to be, you know, want to see if they can do something about it or want to know more about it, it's available. But that's the objective, basically. And that's not even, like, the timelines that are on that aren't even accurate, and even some of the measurements, because that was watered down by our governments, because it does say Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So the scientists are even rearing up about the fact that the real accurate information had been withheld and has had been, you know, diluted a bit. Because again, as I said earlier, our governments think we're fucking dumb sheeple, and that we'll all panic and start jumping over fences if we found out the truth. And the fences are their fences that they've built around us. So, you know, to corral us and to keep us under control and everything else, and be the sheeple they want us to be. We need to be the fucking people we are. You know what I mean? Our own people. You know what I mean? Look, think about your families, your children, your family, your extended families, your communities, your countrymen and your fellow countrymen around the world, everybody and all life. Just think about that. That could actually all be gone within a couple of years. That could actually all be gone in a couple of years. That's fucking horrifying. Like, sorry again for the language, I'm Irish, but I'm saying it for what it is. That is horrifying to think about if you actually have the guts to think about it, because that's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have the guts to think about it. Think about it. Because until you do and until it penetrates, you're not going to get in and play the real fucking game, which is fix the problem. We got to fix this problem. And this is a big problem. But just think about it first. Passing the feather, Jimmy.
No, beautiful stuff. You see, what we're doing here is we're rooting down. Umair, you've cracked us open. And thank you for that. You have cracked us open. And this outpouring is love, intelligence, creativity, wisdom. See, because it's all going into the collective pot, into the stone soup collective pot. So I've done a few sketches. This will just take like a minute of screen sharing. Do you guys have appetite for that, or more, something to say first?
No, work away, yeah, go for it.
Okay, thanks. So here's what's happening now with Umair's articles, and it's super cool. And I think you'll see where I'm going with this, since you guys know me pretty well. Umair writes, reader's comment. That becomes a thing. Umair's article is a thing. Everything with an oval around it is a thing. And that's it. Oh, and then Umair, sorry. And then Umair reads what his readers write. He reads it all. He's always thanking them for it. And then what happens? He writes more based on that reader's comment. It becomes a thing. Umair reads that thing and is inspired and writes even more, and so on. So you have this beautiful, I'm going to put it in blue, this beautiful dialectic. Okay. It's really a dialectic learning machine, among many other things, right? But there's serious learning going on here, and it's remarkably efficient, right? And that in turn is a dimensional enhancement on writing pre-internet. Yeah, people could write letters, but you had to be really serious about it to actually write a letter. But that in turn was a good filter. So old modality, but now greatly facilitated, much more real time. What we're offering is to do a dimensional enhancement on that modality. And the nature of the dimensional enhancement would look something like this. Umair writes, right? And his readers read what he writes, right? So this happens. But then another thing happens. The collective intelligence starts to weigh in about what's happening here. We read not just what Umair writes, but what his readers comment. And then we get on here and what do we do a bunch more writing ourselves? No, we have actual conversations that take off like a rocket ship, as is tonight's, as we grope towards CSI, collective superintelligence. This is a major, major milestone, because beyond that point, it's all exponential growth in collective superintelligence. All right. So if we wanted to then apply a similar, just very simple drawing pattern to this. So Umair writes, his readers read. Umair writes, his readers read, and they comment. Boom. Then collective intelligence weighs in. Boom. And we're just going off. This is just like boom. So much more is produced here in terms of word count than in the whole article, plus all the comments. So we went on word count. Number one, it's true, but number two, you're not just getting our words, you're getting us. You're getting full everything with gestures. I mean, this is so much, it's a more highly dimensional modality of communication, and it's synchronous. But at the same time, it's got its imperfections. I'm not saying this, who the hell wants to sit back and watch 5 hours of us having a great conversation? Nobody. That's why we create a taxonomy, an index, and make it easy for you just to pick out the brown M&Ms if that's what you want. All right, so back to screen sharing. So, we do this explosion of collective intelligence, and this is just with 3 of us. I'm talking about when there's 8,000 of us. So dream ahead a little bit. Can you imagine? Umair writes an article, a bunch of his super cool readers write comments, and then 8,000 of us get together and talk about it. Hello. Do you think that's going to give some interesting feedback to Umair? Hello. But then watch this. we kind of cool it down. I'm going to go from white hot to blue. We cool it down by stepping it down. Umair cools it down by stepping away from the conversation for a couple of days, saying, I need some time to digest this. Who wouldn't? Right? There's a lot to unpack here, but we're also making it very, very compelling. I must add, his readers read this compelling stuff that Umair has now synthesized. You know what's going to go on here? I just figured it out. Umair is going to spend the 5 hours watching this. He might watch it at double speed, right? Which you can do on YouTube. Bless them for having the feature. You can skip past the red stuff. You know, there's a lot you can do to synthesize this. Anyway, he's going to synthesize it for hundreds of thousands of readers who are going to grow to millions as this whole thing grows. So Umair, you're going to have way more readership than you've expected. So this now millions of readers, now he's at, I don't know, tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands, but that's going to jack up to millions and then tens of millions, right? So he's going to have dimensional enhancements in his readership. So boom, all kinds of stuff is going to be coming back, not just at Umair, but at us. So we're going to have so much now going back to white hot, right? All that asynchronous stuff was fun, boys and girls. Now let's crank it up. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Now, if we wanted to look at this from a top view, right, it would look like this. Umair writes, his readers read, collective super intelligence weighs in. Boom, Umair catches the football, runs with it for a while, does a handoff to readers. They put some spin on it and boom, it goes back to collective super intelligence, who then passes it back to Umair, right? Wait, it's messing with my spiral, but you get the idea, right? Can you imagine? How many passes is it going to take? Each pass, the participants in CSI, I've predicted, we'll go from 8,000 to 80,000 in 1 week. I actually think it'll happen a lot faster than that. Because this is a real-time thing. Somebody will call up, they'll text whoever they're texting, right? They'll text whoever they text with, which is, you know, a couple dozen people, whatever. And they'll say, get your ass on here. That's why we're going to go from 8,000 to 80,000 in 1 week. And then in maximum another week, we'll be up at 800,000. Right? Meanwhile, Umair's readership is going to explode from, say, 100,000-ish today to 1 million. That's when he gets multiplied by 10. This is when we get multiplied by 10 over here. From 8,000 to 80,000, Umair is going from 100,000 to 1 million. And when we make the jump over here from 80,000 to 800,000, Umair suddenly has 10 million readers. Right? That's a lot, especially if you're used to more like 100,000. And that's in a couple of weeks. Right? Give us a month or two. Can you imagine where we'll be? Right? This is a diagram of 2 weeks after we launch. 2 weeks after we get the 8,000 together. This thing explodes. 800,000 in the collective intelligence, 10 million reading, right? And then Umair, just like, whoa. Suddenly, he is kind of right at the center of it all, right? Umair's readers and their comments are centered around Umair's writing. Dear Umair is centered around Umair's writing and all their comments, of which there are many brilliant ones, but we're running out of, it's kind of late for all of us and we're really busy. So I say, let's do a separate Dear Umair, like a part 2 of this one, where we read the comments. We could save that to maybe till Friday or something like that. How does that sound, you guys?
Yeah. Well, all I just add to it is, regardless of how long or how many weeks or even months it took for that to get to get to those figures, the point is each time around, and with the conversation increases, and the collective intelligence increases, and the solutions start popping out faster, and the actual numbers start building to push for that change then as well. So that's what it's all about. And the sooner we get the game on the road, the better.
Totally. Absolutely, totally. All right. Well,
This was a great one, though, as far as I'm concerned, and because that article was fantastic. And especially the start of it, as Marco said there, when we took a break to make a cup of tea, and that he was describing the emotions we only have. We have conversations only recently about these kind of emotions that people are dealing with, like, and but it's people who are dealing with them, but also standing up and trying to do something about it. And as you said, Jamin, action is the antidote for despair. So this is what we need to do, and collectively, if you want to shake yourself out of the depression or snap yourself out of the false game on the online, non-reality game, get in the real game, and get here, get in this conversation and these conversations. And yeah, that's it. That's all we need to do. I'm sorry, I'm blabbing a bit because it's now 5:15 a.m. for me here in Ireland. But I loved the conversation. It was gripping and well worth it to stay up there. But magic again, nice one. Thanks, lads.
oh my goodness, it's been absolutely amazing. So anyway, everyone's welcome to join us on Dear Umair. Just look in the description for the link to join. And, hey, we could get thousands of people here just on Dear Umair. Forget about the press conference, right? See, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Maybe it'll be at the block party. In fact, one of the Dear Umairs is at the block party. The other one's on Monday. Anyway, who cares where we break through? Just like I said, Umair, if you want to go break through and not even invite us, we'll be delighted. But it has to happen. The thing has to happen. And right now, Dear Umair, you are right at the center of it. And with this article, you've got all of our, not just our minds cracked open, you've got our hearts broken open. Because you opened up and spilled your heart out, and we said, hey, you're not alone. Number one, you're not alone. Number two, but he knew that. Number two, there's an antidote to all this. And it is beautiful. Join us. I pass the feather.
We hit a lot of good points today, and echo one more time the especially the beginning of the article so describes what I've been going through, and it could have been an article about what's wrong with Marco, the last few months. And
I've been wondering that myself. Anyway, back to you, Marco.
yeah, it's part of that idea. This is where that idea, like, misery loves company, because as soon as you see somebody else is sharing a circumstance that you are, it creates a different feeling. So it creates the willingness to reach out, because, hey, your situation of not dealing well with being in the sixth math extinction is shared. So
You're not alone.
yeah, absolutely not alone. And that makes it easier to function moving forward. So we're here for you, and we want you to be here for us. Just knowing that you've got this information that needs to be shared, and do the best you can with it. As Jamin said, it doesn't have to be here, as long as you're aware, and you can start writing articles about this is the latest progress in cooling the planet. That's the headline.
Yeah, I think, and I just want to acknowledge James and just allow James to fade gracefully as you need to, given how late it is there in Ireland. And thanks for hanging in there as long as you did, James. But feel free to just don't worry about it, or speak as you wish. But I totally agree with what Marco is saying, and it just occurred to me that Umair is probably the one person on the planet who I know of who could, after sitting down and writing for 1 hour, could hit submit his article on medium.com. And a few days later, a week later, 2 weeks later, however, whenever you want to schedule it, obviously there's probably a sweet spot of a couple of weeks or so, but there's no way you're not going to have 8,000 people. You might even have 80,000 if you schedule it 2 weeks out and give word a chance to spread. People will come. Okay. And you are the proverbial Luke Skywalker in this proverbial final scene. It's the final conflict. It couldn't be more perfect. The Death Star approacheth, and it's about to intentionally wipe us all out, right? They don't quite realize that the explosion will be so big it'll wipe out the Death Star as well, but that's kind of, academic, frankly. Their objective is to destroy life. Ours is to survive. So, but right now there's actually one person who can take the shot and have it hit the bullseye after 1 hour of typing, and that's Umair. Dear Umair. Umairjan. That kind of dear Umair.
As they say in Ireland, for me anyway, what it is with Umair is that he hits the nail on the head. Like, it's as simple as that. He hits the nail on the head. He says it like it is. And though we sometimes might have a few things to point out, or might say like that there's this way of looking at it or whatever, it doesn't matter. That's all about conversation. The point is, he hits the nail on the head, and that's why I love reading his articles as well, and I love being here discussing them. And his readers obviously do, because they love reading. He's got so many readers, and they enjoy the comments and everything else, and they're, he hits the nail on the head for them as well. So all I'm saying is, we need the readers and who are putting in the comments as well. If they want to really get in the conversation, yeah, it's nice to put in the comments, but get in the conversation. Let's stop playing the game. I think I'm repeating myself, but that's what we need to do. No. I'd love again for Umair to show up soon.
And I think it's working. Let me tell you why, James. Check this out. So I'm a Taurus, right? So sometimes I get kind of stubbornly affixed to an idea, and I just take it as far as I can go. Maybe I've taken the Umair invitation as far as at this point, Umair, either you get it or you don't. And I think you get it. And I think you'll take the step. Only question is, there's another vector that's now coming into play, which is, check this out. Regardless of when Umair reads our comments, checks out Dear Umair or whatever, regardless of all that, okay, there is one group of people that's going to read about us and click on the links and check out our videos, and that's Umair's readership, right? there's a reason that they write a comment, and then someone comments on their comment, and then they comment on that person's comment. These are people groping to be in conversation, but like prisoners at Alcatraz, right? They're only able to pass notes under the door, written notes only, nothing spoken. And you have to wait, I don't know, hours to get a response typically, maybe minutes if you're lucky. Here it's real time, right? So, you know, this is the prison break on the forced notes under the door as the only modality of communication. One of the beautiful things is they're public. So it's, I mean, look, it's a beautiful dialectic, what Umair and readers already have going on. It's beautiful. We're just offering to throw some benevolent, you know, vegan gas on that fire, right? That sequesters carbon, right? And that most importantly is reflective, like a volcano. But anyway, no, I think, I mean, it's just, there's no way that this is not going to go up and up and up, because listen, say a dozen of Umair's, just a dozen of Umair's readers join us in here to be a part of it. Come on. Come on. There's 3 of us here now. Sometimes there's 5 of us, sometimes there's 7. Okay, that's great. But when you take our 7, because we're growing too, just independently of Umair, take our 7, right? Add a dozen from Umair's side. Can you imagine 19 of us? See, 19 of us get together and we do a press conference. But can you imagine 19 of us doing Dear Umair? That's some serious stuff. And guess what? I guarantee you, Umair is going to watch every minute of 19 people talking about what? The Bible? No, his article, his most recent creation. Okay. I mean, if I were an artist and, you know, days at the most days after I produce some masterpiece, I can watch a live broadcast of 19 people, 19 art critics having a conversation about it. Would I watch that? Yes or no? Of course I'm going to watch it. He'll probably watch us live and then just fly in on a cape when he feels like it. You know what I'm saying? Of course you're going to want to watch that live. And then he flies in on a cape, and what are we all going to do? Like bow down or something? I'll bow down. Anyway, I think you get the point. Umair's readers, join us. Umair, join us, everybody. And then followed by the rest of the world, because y'all are the pioneers. And then a bunch of people are going to follow you guys. But you're like the, I don't know, the Donner Party or something of, you know, and Umair, you're like our prophet. And, you know, we're offering to be your public relations firm / marketing department / you know, community building, but exponentially, right? You get on this rocket ship, we go exponential. That's the one warning. Warning, this will go exponential. All right. And if the Dear Umair crowd, Umair's audience, Umair's readers, and Umair himself don't jump on this, they become the Gary Kildalls of history. The ones who were offered the opportunity to basically be the Microsoft. Gary Kildall was famously offered the opportunity to be the Microsoft to IBM. And he didn't take the meeting. So the lesson here is take the meeting. You don't have to agree with the folks. You don't have to agree with anything about it, but at least take the meeting, and then you'll know how big this thing is. Homeboy didn't take the meeting. He went on to lead a tragic life. I think he died after a fist fight in a bar or something. I mean, he was one angry dude, and you can understand why. He had the opportunity to be freaking Microsoft. He took a pass. Dear Umair, don't make the same mistake. And I also wholeheartedly invite all your readers to join us.
Yeah, I'm, based on your content, Umair, and how it's drawn our attention, and I'm sure within your current audience, followers, readers, however you want to describe them, there are going to be some shining stars and some gems that will become an integral part of saving us from the sixth mass extinction that we are currently in. And to say anything else except we are currently in the sixth mass extinction of life on this planet, anyone that says that is very naive. At best. And with that, I look forward to having to wear my sunglasses to do these meetings because of the bright, shining stars that will come.
Dude, we're going to fill up the screen within days after we publish this. We're going to fill the screen. And that's going to be the big, I predict that will be the beginning of the exponential right there. Because, okay, it's one thing if we remember, I talked about Umair watching the 19 people talking. Now, can you imagine the 100,000 watching the 19 people talking and more kids jumping into the pool? That's why it's exponential. Anyway, with that, I pass the feather.
Well, I just can't wait for it to happen. I know it will happen. I just can't wait for it to happen. And it will happen. Simple as that. Because it has to happen. Simple as that. And all I say is, again, Umair, I look forward to the day you're having a conversation with us. And now also many of his readers, because I know that you're well into having the conversation and you know that Umair speaks the truth and hits the nail on the head. So let's have a chat about it. Good night from Ireland, that's what I say. Or good morning, or this stage is nearly 5:30 in the morning. God bless us and save us all.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Marco. And thank you, Umair. Thank you, Umair's readers. And join us. Much love to all.
Take care and God bless. Thanks, Marco. Thanks, Jevon. And Jessie saying thank you as well.
Yeah, I heard her.
No, she said fucking thank you. All right. Much love to all. Thanks, everyone. Night.
Good night and God bless.